Wow, I am going to make this brief. I know that's going to shock some of you guys. Okay, so, yeah. So for all you guests, this is what it's like, okay? I get up and everybody makes fun of Blake. But how many guests do we have today? I know we have quite a few. That is unbelievable. Yeah. This is actually, we are now in double digits. This is our 10th cab quarterly breakfast. So for everybody, how many has been to all 10? Oh, we need a round of applause for that. For those of you, this is your first time to cab. It's obviously a pretty relaxed environment. Hopefully you feel very welcomed. It's just a chance 4 times a year to come together. We're trying to infuse how we can live the Christian way in the next 90 days. And just trying, hopefully you can come away with some nuggets that will get you through the next 90 days. We're all in this together. It's kind of our mantra. And if we can each help each other, then that's what we're here to do. So hopefully this is going to be a good event. I will remind you at the end, but these envelopes, for those of you that aren't members yet, this is the exciting envelope that you can put your $100 in or a check or mail it in and become a CAB member. And with that you get free breakfast, unlimited guests, and a book and a fancy name tag. So a lot of people just sign up for the name tag. So anyway, glad to have you here. I'm going to introduce Ed O'Malley. Most of you know Ed. Ed is the CEO and founder of the Kansas Leadership Center. Doesn't really need an introduction. He might tell you a little bit more. And he's going to be facilitating our panel discussion today. This is the second time we've done it. By far, last year's panel discussion got the highest marks. So we're going to bring that back, and we'll probably bring it back on an annual basis. So if you or someone you know would want to be part of the panel in the future, please give us their name and recommendations, and we'd love to entertain that as well. So, logistics. Our goal, since everybody is in the workforce for the most part, we're going to wrap up here at about 8:40, have closing remarks, and we're going to be done by 8:45. Is that fair? No? Okay. And if you need to leave, obviously you can do that. If you need to get a copy, for those of you who haven't been to Spiritual Life Center in a while, that's a brand new the juice bar. What's the official title, Kelly? Coffee bar. It's wonderful, and I do want to recognize Kelly and Megan and the team at the Spiritual Life Center who really take care of all the food and the logistics. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed O'Malley. Ed?
Thank you, Blake. Thank you.
If the panel wants to come up while Ed's begin his opening remarks, that would be wonderful.
That'd be great. Thank you. Let me set that there for me. A couple of quick things to expand on what Blake was saying. If you do need to leave early, we understand some people have things, commitments they need to get to. Make sure, though, if you leave early, you walk out while I'm speaking and not while other panelists are speaking, right? The bar was set very high by last year's panelists. Real quick, where are the panelists from last year? Did you raise your hand real quick? We have a couple of them here today. So they did a great job last year. These folks are going to do a great job this year, and I'm excited to be a part of the conversation with them. But one thing that I told them is that I view my job, I'm kind of like Oprah today, right? That's how I view what I'm doing. My job is to try to stimulate a great conversation. It's a conversation among the folks up here, a conversation in your own head, frankly, right? To get you thinking differently, and a conversation among all of us here. And if you were here last year, you'll remember that some of the same questions I asked the panelists, I also asked you. And I asked you to spend a little time talking to somebody sitting to your left or to your right about how you would answer the same question. So with that warning, now would be a good time if you don't like who you're sitting next to. Does anybody want to? Okay? Okay, good. You all can't move. You're stuck here. I think most of you know, I think everybody here probably knows at least one member of the panel, if not more than one member of the panel. So we're not going to do long introductions. I've asked each of them to introduce themselves, to talk about what they do professionally, maybe mention what parish that they're a part of, and then we're going to dive into the conversation. And again, remember, their job is to be a conversation catalyst for you. Okay? A conversation catalyst. One of the things we were talking about before we got started was it's difficult to be up there in their seats today. Right? To talk about something like how do we live our faith in our business life, in our organizational life. It's difficult to do that because how do you talk about that in a way that doesn't seem boisterous? Right? Doesn't seem like you've got it all figured out? Because none of us have it all figured out. None of us have it all figured out. It's a journey for all of us. So in a lot of ways, what they're doing for us today is they're being of great service for us. They are being vulnerable. They're sitting up here. They're being vulnerable, and they'll share their answers to these questions in the hopes that it'll stimulate your thoughts about these questions and will catalyze your conversation. We want to catalyze your conversation today during this hour we have together, but also if this is really successful, then the conversation will continue in your head over the next several hours, maybe even over the course of this week, the rest of the week. Maybe it'll lead to conversations in your business or in your home. That'll be great. So we're trying to catalyze all that. And before we get started, we're going to thank them again, but let's just thank our friends up here for being willing to be those conversation catalysts for us. So let's thank them. They have one microphone that they'll share. So Ronnie, why don't you go first? Tell us a little bit about you, about what you do, what parish you're a part of. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Ronnie Leonard, and one of these other panelists is my better half.
Rachel's having a sitting next
Can you
to
raise
you.
your hand? Just making sure he's admitted to it. But I'm the president and CEO of Balco. We are a manufacturer of custom architectural building products here in Wichita, neighbors to our sponsors. Don Leader, thank you very much for sponsoring today. And we are members of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic Church out west. And we have 4 children. And I'm a graduate of Wichita State, and I'm one of 11. My home parish is Resurrection. So that's a little bit about me.
Wonderful, wonderful, thank you. Some of you may have noticed the article, I think it was last year, in the Eagle about Balco, about being named one of the top exporters, not in Wichita, not in Kansas, but in the nation. Received a rather prestigious award, if I remember correctly. So congratulations on that. And it'll be great again to think about how does our faith play into our, not just our business life, but our business success. Thanks, Brian. Wendy?
I'm Wendy Glick. I'm Executive Director of Catholic Charities. My husband and I co-parish between St. Thomas Aquinas and Our Lady of Lourdes in Pittsburgh, Kansas. I have worked for the diocese in 6 different roles over the last 19 years. I am a convert, not a cradle Catholic like many of you here, but married a cradle Catholic. And my mother-in-law would be very proud to know that I've been asked to be on this panel.
Can we make sure we get a photograph?
She is 101 years old and living in a Via Christi facility in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And I love her dearly. She was my role model and never pressured me to join the church, but certainly was a wonderful role model. And I hope I do her honor every day.
I'm not sure I need to say anything. You've heard it all from Ronnie. I do have one correction, and it's very uncommon for me to correct Ronnie, but Bishop Jacobs correctly pointed out that she's really my better 80%. I'm an attorney at Triple Wolf and Garrettson, and if any of you think that the reason that I'm sitting up here is because I'm any further down this path of conversion that we're all on, divorce yourself with that immediately. I don't need to say that to anybody who knows me, but honored to be up here.
Good morning. My name is Chris Goble. I'm the chairman and CEO of Star Lumber and Supply. I was born and raised a cradle Catholic, second oldest of 9 kids. Our business is Star Lumber and Supply. We're now 78 years old. I was third president of the company, and I retired as president in 2010 and remain chairman and CEO today. Patrick, our fourth president, is in the audience. He's a cousin. But I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic schools, grades 2 through 12. About family, Kosi and I have 3 kids and 13 and a half grandkids. I'm very, very blessed. Parish, I was born and raised in Christ the King, and we moved recently right near Seas, and 11 of the grandkids go to Seas, and so we have a big magnet there, and we're about ready to maybe enroll there, but Christ the King still kind of needs us, and so we're maybe co-parishioners, if you will.
That's great. Thank you. And some of you know that while I run the Kansas Leadership Center, my real occupation is the 8th grade boys basketball coach. And we have trouble beating C's. So maybe we could talk. And St. Thomas we struggle with as well. So maybe Blake, can you help me too? Get some pointers. Okay, let's dive in here. So my first question for them is going to be, when do you think about your faith in the context of your work? When? And I think it's a question for all of us, so be thinking about how you would answer this question. And I think it's, and by the way, I've asked them not to feel compelled to answer every question, and not to feel compelled to, a lot of typical panel discussions, you throw out a question and all 17 panelists answer it, and then the panel discussion's over. So they might have something they want to say to a question, or they might just pass the mic to somebody else, and that's fine. But the question is when, in the context of your work, when do you find yourself thinking about your faith? When do you think about it? We'll see what they come up with the answers. But be thinking how you would answer this question too. A sub-question might be, when should we be? When should we be thinking about our faith? But the question that gets some response to is, when do you find yourself thinking about your faith? What comes to your mind?
A few years ago, Father Sherlock challenged me after confession one day to double my prayer life. And I'm challenged with the longest commute in the city limits. So we live way west, my office is way east, and that was a perfect opportunity for me to capture that time and use it in a useful way. And so that's, my morning prayers happen my 25-minute drive across town, and usually I'm not done by the time I get to the office. But one of the things I think about on that drive every day is I pray for a lot of different things, a lot of different people, but in my business I pray for humility, because, again, for those of you who know me, my biggest struggle is pride, quite honestly. And so humility is not the easiest thing in the world for me, and I ask for it every day. I think it's integral to what I do.
I have it easy. Being the director of Catholic Charities, obviously a faith-based organization, officed at the St. Joseph Pastoral Center. As I drive into the parking lot, I think about my faith. As I walk up to my office, I think about my faith. I try to begin every day with morning mass, which is real convenient. I just get to walk across the building into the cathedral. And so it's very natural for me, but like Jeff, I know my weaknesses as well, and I'm an only child. I never learned to play well with others. And I tend to think it needs to be my way, and sometimes others have better ways. And so every morning when I approach my work or I spend time at Mass, I encourage myself and ask God for guidance in being a better listener. And practicing my faith by being open to the word of others as well as the word of God.
Wendy, real quick, before you pass it off, the question is one of the things that dawned on me as you were answering is there are others here who work in an environment that might have some of the similar trappings as yours. Maybe they work at Capen, or they work in the diocese, or they work in a parish office. And so on one hand, it might make it easier, right? Mass is right across the street. Is there anything about it that makes it harder? Is there anything about it that, is it kind of like when you live in the mountains, you don't notice the mountains after a while? And I'm just curious if there's anything about that environment that might make it more difficult.
Sure. I know for us at Catholic Charities, 80% of those that work for us are of a different faith persuasion. So being sensitive to that, to the way that others practice their faith, and trying to not push my faith in a way that would be offensive to others in our workplace. Making sure that the prayers are inclusive and not something like we don't say a Hail Mary every day because not everybody knows how to say the Hail Mary, or a certain prayer, or just reminding ourselves that although we are Catholic Charities, and Catholic is the first thing in our title and in our name, that we need to take into consideration the beliefs and the thoughts of others who are in our workplace. So often I forget that, and I'm reminded by those who are of a different faith practice that are in our midst, how sometimes that can be intimidating, and to be accessible to them to answer questions about our faith.
Thanks, Wendy. Chris, and then Ronnie, you have any thoughts on this one too?
I became president when I was 31 years old. My dad had heart arrhythmia problems, and needed me at that time. It was too early in my career, and I struggled some. But I came to the realization that the Lord must have a business office. This room is about 80 foot square. I think his office must be 500 foot square because he or she, I know a lot of real smart gals. I wouldn't surprise me at all that he's actually a she. But I'm going to say he for now. But has business degrees in every subject known to man. In my business, he knows about concrete construction, he knows about wood frame construction, he knows about DOT regulations, he knows how to lay flooring, he knows how to get out of all kinds of jams. And if you realize that he knows all those things, you can ask, he knows a lot more than about fishermen and those things that you read about in the Bible. He knows about all kinds of things. And when you get in the habit of talking to him, he never has once sent me a fax or now an instant message or anything like that, but these answers just seem to fog into your mind when he responds. And so we talk all the time. And I, just like Jeff, when I'm in the car, the radio might be on, but I very rarely listen to it because I'm thinking about something else, and lots of times the Lord's involved in those conversations.
Well, I'll just finish up this first question. I work in a construction manufacturing environment, and Jeff can testify to this. We go on a walk every morning, and the one thing that I'm always doing is praying for wisdom. In the type of environment that I work in, I'm not working with professionals, throughout, and you just see a lot of hurt amongst our employees, and there's a lot of need there, and you see them searching for stuff, and as the leader, I feel like I've got a big responsibility, not only for their livelihood, which is talk about what keeps you up at night. Company's been in business 60 years, and I've only been the CEO for 5, and I don't want to be the reason we go under. But anyway, but you just, some people might think that a CEO is, you're the decision maker, which you are. I always call myself the woman to blame. But you end up, you see that there's such a need, people looking for direction, and I'm just privileged to be in an organization, you know, where I am able to. They all know I'm Catholic. They all know that I go to Mass with my mom on Fridays. You know, they know I'm a believer, and you know, and it's difficult to do that in a publicly traded company. That's our ownership. But you know, I just see that need, and I see our employees reaching out, and so as far as when I'm thinking about work, I mean, I'm just praying for all our employees, and praying for God to help me do the right thing and not let them down.
So let's share our table now for a minute. Here's how this will work. We're going to do 90 seconds. And at the end of the 90 seconds, you're going to hear me start talking. And that means you're supposed to stop talking. Right? And you want to just talk to somebody on your left or your right. If you try to have a table conversation, one person or maybe two people will talk and nobody else will talk, right? So try to, you know, again, start maybe with the person on this side of you. If you didn't like them, the next time you don't do that. Do that. So the idea is just a brief conversation, right? Because what we know that people, especially adults, they learn more if they can process something and apply it, right? So the question is, when do you find yourself thinking about your faith? And the sub-question that I'd ask you to think about too is, when should you? Are there times you should be that maybe you're not? I know there are for me. I know there are plenty of times for me when I probably should be thinking more of my faith in my business, in my organizational life, and I'm not. So when do you, and if you want to answer just a touch on, is there a time when you should be that maybe you don't always? Tell on yourselves just a little bit, right? 90 seconds. The way you're going to do this is whoever has the larger hands will go first. We're not going to waste any time. We're not going to waste any time trying to decide who goes first, okay? All right, 90 seconds, go for it. By the way, there'll be time, we'll have time, if you have a question that you want to ask these folks, we'll have some time for that. But this is also the time, if you heard something, or if there's something on your mind that based on that little conversation you want to share, I think the group would love to hear it. So my ground rule is this. It'd be great if maybe one or two people shared real quick what you came up with. If you don't feel comfortable sharing how you answered the question, just say whatever your partner said. They won't care. They don't care. Don't divulge anything unless they've given you permission. But anybody hear something or think about something that you think might be interesting to others here that you want to share? Yes, sir.
Walking into meeting, clients or with employees, and just taking that brief moment before we go in there to say, your words, not mine. Stop. Feel free to stop me.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, walking into a meeting and just having that quick prayer, your words, not mine. Stop me. Yeah, if you need to, please. I love that. Thank you. Anybody else I want to share? Yes.
It's in mine, Amy Grant said that she says, put me where you need me. You know, that's a good prayer.
Yeah. Put me where you need me. And I think it's hard, especially those of us who are in kind of key roles, key authority roles. I think often we work with thousands of folks a year now at the Kansas Leadership Center. And I think one of the things we find is folks, when they have those key authority roles, it can be hard for them to keep that in mind. We do a lot with churches and faith communities all across the state. A lot of parishes are doing more and more with the Catholic diocese here. But put me where you need me. I think there are times when we're at the top of the hierarchy or close to the top, we can assume that we're the one to decide where I'm needed or where other people are needed, and hopefully we praise them. Thanks. Okay, let's get the next question here. So Ronnie talked about how her people know she's Catholic and she lives that, and she said that doing that in a publicly traded company can be interesting sometimes. So the question I want to ask the panel now is, what does it look like to live the new evangelization in the workplace to you? What's that look like? How does that play out for you and in your organization? My sense is none of us get this 100% right. My guess is there are all sorts of times when there's a moment for me to do something that resembles living out the new evangelization, and I didn't even notice it at the moment. And there are other times, I hope, when I do notice it and I do act on it. But the question is, what does it look like for you and your organization, your company, to live out the new evangelization? Chris.
Well, this, we kind of got a little heads up on questions, and when this one came, I swallowed pretty hard because I don't know that I have the right answer to this. I'm going to take a little stab at this. That's why I want to go first. I think we're all in a fishbowl. I tell the family that. I think there's lots of eyes on us. All of our stakeholders, for example, have eyes on us. So do family members. And they're watching us for all kinds of things. And I think we need to be cognizant of that. And, tonight we had a rosary for a long-time employee that was a family member. I think it makes a difference what I say and what the family says to their family. There will be a funeral tomorrow. I think those are small examples where people, I'm making a point to genuflect, to kneel and say my prayers like I should, not be distracted and look around and gawk and those kinds of things. I just cognizant of those. I think the other thing, working for a Catholic family, we had at the company our morals pass through to all the rules of the company as well. And so when those questionable things come up, there are lots of eyes on us to see when our faith is tested a little bit, whether we're going to stay true to that. And those are other times when people are keeping an eye on you, and they're playing what radio station is best for them. And lots of them are at Star because they like our culture, and they are wanting to make sure that we keep within our culture, and that's one of the things that the active family members are very cognizant of. And then I think the last part is when you have someone that is interested in the faith, that you take the time to tell them, to give them a witness, to tell them what some of your experiences are, and to direct them to the right place. And so I don't know that I have this all correct, but those are the things that kind of are on top of mind for me.
Thanks, Chris.
Along those lines, I think to the extent you can, you lead by example. And the law firm's hierarchy is a little bit different than most corporate cultures. You've got administrative assistants and legal assistants and younger lawyers, usually associates, and then partners. And typically any kind of a case or matter will involve a team effort. And so as I think back in the past, maybe not so many years ago, my leadership style was more to the team, this is what I think we should do. And now, I'm not perfect about it, but now my style is more either what do you think we should do, or what do you think of this idea as a team, in an effort to try to bring everybody's ideas to the table and not just what I think is my best plan.
He does think he's right all the time. He's just never wrong. Right? I think that's
All right.
This motivated the best section of the ball.
Turned into a whole new channel.
I've got a plaque on my desk, and I'll let you guess where it came from, but it's a quote from C.S. Lewis that says, you know, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less.
Okay, but he asked for that. Yeah, he did ask. No, I mean, not like he deserved it, but he did ask for something just for fun.
You've got a copy of the Joy of the Gospel on these tables, and that is a remarkable book. And I'm a convert as well, and I was brought. My process of conversion started long before I came to the Catholic Church, but I was converted to the Catholic Church by witnessing the examples of new friends to me and their families. And I am not someone who can comfortably go out and proselytize in a way of, look, if you're not in the Catholic Church, you're not. I can't do it that way. The only way I can do it well is to try to set a good example.
Let me slide a minute up. I want to be the panel last time. Sorry.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a competition between last year's panel and this year. They want to make sure they win.
In complete transparency, I just have to share that I had to do some extensive reading on the new evangelization. I'm glad you sent that question in advance. So,
There we go.
Really what I read was it's not a new evangelization, it's just a re-evangelization. And I liked that, getting back to the basics. I'm not big on mission statements, but I think there's a purpose to them, and they provide a foundation and a grounding for the work that you do. And so to me, the re-evangelization, which is the new evangelization, is about kindness. And to be kind, be kind, be kind. And I know if any of you went to Monsignor Gilson's rosary, that was something that Monsignor Hemberger said, that there was a time when all the priests in the diocese were together for a special meeting, and everybody got the microphone, and if you can imagine how long that went. And that's what Monsignor Hemberger shared, and when the microphone was passed to Monsignor Gilson, that's all he said: be kind, be kind, be kind. And so that's how I try to remind myself to live the new evangelization.
Well, I think everyone said everything that needs to be said on that subject. But no, one of the things that I just wanted to touch on, I like Wendy was like, what in the heck is new evangelization? But unlike her, I did not look it up.
But you went last on the panel.
So I was just kind of following the lead. But one of the things that I have, Jeff and I were talking about this as far as new evangelization. I find that Pope Francis has really opened up a dialogue, not only amazingly so among our non-Catholic friends and family, You know, just by his example, I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have said, oh, I love him though. You know, I'm like, oh, I love him too. But anyway, so I just think, you know, his leading by example, showing that, you know, who am I to judge, and being merciful, you know, I think that if we can practice that, then that's one way that we can evangelize.
We might think about what makes that hard. And that might be the question to ask you all for a minute. What makes it hard? And as I think of the new evangelization, I think of that as us just living out our faith as an example, as they talked about. And that by that example, others will come to know the gospel. By that example, right? Who said, who was it that said, preach the gospel, and if you have to use words?
Attributed to Saint.
Is that
Just attributed to Assisi, but
attributed to CC? Okay. Yeah, so I think the new evangelization is just that idea, right? And so the question might be, what makes it hard to do that? I mean, if I had to go, if I was up on Mars, and I was looking back at the last 3 weeks of my life, and I had to make note of every time I saw something that looked like that I was living out the gospel, so others could see it. You know, if I had to make a record of that, and I wonder what I would record. And I wonder if I would see moments when I could have done, I could have lived something out, but didn't. And so the question is, what makes it hard? What makes it hard? And I think the reason I know Father Urach at Blessed Sacrament, for years has been, he keeps talking about the new evangelization to us. He keeps talking about it. And I think he does that because we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that it's easy to live out our faith. And if it was easy to live out our faith, we probably wouldn't have a need for something like confession, right? We would just have it down. So what makes it hard for you to live out your faith in a way so that it's recognized by others? Right? What makes it hard for you to live out your faith in a way, in your workplace, in the workplace? This is the Catholic Assembly for Business. Right? So in the workplace, what makes it hard for you to live out your faith in a way that is recognized by others? Take a few minutes, 90 seconds, to come up with an answer, and we'd love to hear an answer too from Travis. live out your faith in a way that it could be noticed, in a way that somebody who might be watching you might say, wow, that person is living out the gospel. What makes that hard to do? What do you come up with? Anything? Yes?
Sometimes it's just the amount of stuff that comes at you and the way you respond to things. And so if things are hitting you fast and hard, sometimes we have a tendency of kind of falling back the wrong way. Just taking the time to be patient so that you can actually have the wisdom that you need to.
Yeah, I appreciate you offering that up. I know, I personally find that when I'm not very busy, I do a much better job living out what I think I need to talk. Right? And the busier I get, the harder it gets for me. The harder it gets for me. I remember last year, Jim, where'd Jim go?
Yes.
Get stuff out. Jim, last year, I remember talking a bit about his morning routine. And I have a very disciplined morning routine too. That becomes less disciplined the more busy I get. If I'm being honest with you. Thank you. Jeff wanted to answer this question as well. What makes it hard?
I know it's not unique to the legal profession, but most of the time, almost without exception, what I do is in the nature of an adversarial relationship. So I am actively fighting for my client's cause. Oftentimes with people that are fighting just as hard for their client's cause, and so the struggle is to fight the good fight in a diplomatic and in a way that God would want you to, and that is not always easy, particularly when your adversary is not of a like mindset. It's really easy to jump back and respond in a way that you would regret later. So I find, again, I think it's part of the aging process too. I find myself spending more and more time contemplating the way I communicate in a fashion that is least likely to provoke a negative response from the other side. And sometimes your clients will say, no, I want you to go in there and put on the armor and charge and be as mean as you can possibly be. And it's like, I can't do that. And it's almost never in your best interest to do that. But that's my struggle. How to fight with honor and dignity in a way that is going to lead you to a resolution that's appropriate and not be hurtful.
Yeah, especially when part of the work is about fighting. Part of the work is about one side is going to win more, perhaps, and one side is going to lose more, perhaps. How do you do that in a way that honors our faith? Great question. All right. Question I want to ask now is, and I think Wendy has a story to tell, and then I'm going to ask a flip side of the question to Ronnie. The question is can you think of a time when living out your faith in your organizational life, in your business life, led to great results in the organization or in the business? Now, what I want to try to play with here on this question and the one we're going to ask Ronnie is the connection between the success or the lack of success in our business and organizational life and our faith. I want you to see, are there stories out there that we can connect to? So be thinking in your own mind, is there a story that when you lived out your faith, it led to business organizational success? And maybe the converse too. When you failed to, did it ever lead to a lack of success? And by the way, we are about, after we hear these two answers, I'd love if there's a question from the group. We'd love to take that. We're about 9 minutes away from me handing this back to Blake. And so if there's a question on your mind that you want to ask the panel, or you want your fellow participants here to be thinking about, get ready to ask it here in just a moment. Wendy, what do you think?
Yeah, so I've always struggled with wanting things in my time, not God's time, and learning that. That's something I struggle with on a daily basis. But I experienced it in a pretty substantial way back in 2002. Everybody reads about the Lord's Diner and knows how great and awesome it is, and I'm so proud of the time that I spent there and the work that Jan and the staff is doing now. But most people don't realize that when it first opened in February of 2002, we really struggled. We really struggled to just get things up and going from a functional perspective, operational perspective, and then as a team, we really struggled. There were 5 of us on staff. I was the volunteer coordinator. I was not the executive director at the time. And the executive director was a non-Catholic Protestant minister who had great passion for serving the poor, but I think he came in with an expectation that there was going to be opportunities to preach to the homeless, and they really wanted to come in and eat and go. There wasn't a lot of preaching that he was able to do. And so he began meeting there less and less and less. And so the team really struggled to find leadership. And I remember how frustrated I was, and my husband said, "You're done. You got to write your letter of resignation, because I can't handle you coming home every night crying." And so I did write my letter of resignation, and I was supposed to have supervision with the director the next day, and he didn't come to work. And so that evening I was working dinner, and it was late in August, maybe early September, that this happened. And it was in excess of 100 degrees outside, and there was a homeless gentleman that I had gotten to know very well. His name was David. He was an African-American man, skin very, very, very dark. He loved Mary. He would wear rosaries around his neck. He prayed to Mary all the time. He obviously had some mental illness, but would come in and talk about his faith and talk about Mary. And I have often told people that I think God may speak to us through those who are mentally ill, because they're more open to hearing the Word of God and sharing it, and not necessarily so concerned about other people's opinions. And so David came in this night not knowing that I was getting ready to leave my position there. And as he's standing in line, he said, "I have to talk to you tonight. You come find me when I sit down." And I said, "Okay." And he didn't eat that night. He got a cup of coffee, and that was it. And he smelled awful. I can still remember clearly the odor because of how hot it was, and he spent his days outside. So I sat across from him, and I can remember how dark his eyes were, and he leaned across the table to me, and he said to me, "Mary knows what's in your heart, and you need to open your heart and be patient." And I was not thinking about my faith at that time. I was thinking about my own personal struggles with the team and how it was affecting my personal life. And I went home that night and I said to my husband, "David told me I need to be more patient." And he's like, "Who is this David? Why does he have such power over you?" So that was in, like I said, late September. The gentleman who had been the executive director resigned in January, and I became the director in March. So I try to remind myself of that story a lot, especially when I want it to be in my time, not God's time.
Thank you, Wendy. Ronnie, how about, we have a few minutes left here, how about the flip side of that? At the time, a story when maybe not living out our faith got in the way?
Yeah, when you sent us this question, I mean, I was like, oh golly, you gotta put yourself out there to share with you all my feelings. But you know, I've had the privilege in my career to work for some great bosses where I learned a lot, and to work for some not so great bosses where I learned a lot. And that's what I always tell my kids. And it's like, you're learning just as much from these guys who aren't the greatest people to work for as you do someone who is, you know, great to work for. And, you know, I just remember earlier in my career working for a few people who, you know, in today's vernacular would be called bullies. And they were bully managers, and they took delight in humiliating employees. I mean, it was a power thing. And it still kind of makes me sick to my stomach to think back that I just stood by and didn't say anything. At that time, I was a single parent. I had one child, and it was like, and plus I didn't want the spotlight on me. I didn't want them to turn on me, but, you know, I think, like I said, in hindsight, I'm still regretful of that. But the one thing that I do believe that God has the ability, and if anyone knows Jeff and my story, he has the ability to take the bad and turn it to good. And, you know, so that is one thing, you know, I take my own advice like I give my kids, and I've learned from that. And I always strive to treat people with dignity and respect, and to let them know they're valued. I think that's something that we can do in our workplace, is just make sure everyone knows they are valued, because everyone wants to feel important, and you're only as successful as your least successful employee. And so if you've got people, you know, that don't feel valued, then that can affect your company and the performance you're going on. So.
Thank you, Ronnie. We're down. I know Blake is going to give me the cut off sign here any moment. So what I'd love to do is just know, are there questions that are on your mind? Questions that, frankly, we're not going to have time for the panel to answer. The questions that we should be thinking about as we leave here. Questions that we should be all contemplating as we leave, as we go back to our workplace. So if there's a question you were wanting to ask the panel, all I'm asking you to do is instead ask it of the group. Put it in our minds, put it in our thinking as we prepare to leave here today. Anybody have a question that we should be thinking about? Yes?
So, in a leadership position, I often struggle with or am challenged by justice versus mercy. So, giving employees second, third, fourth opportunities to either recover or do better, however you want to say it. And so, where is that balance between justice, especially from a business standpoint, versus mercy in a Christian sense, and then tied to that, the idea of profit versus people. So making a decision of, I can give this person more time, but it's going to cost me profit. So where do I go?
Yeah, great questions for us to be thinking about as we leave here. What does it look like to balance justice and mercy in our business and organizational life? What does it look like for us to balance care for people versus care for profit? We're in a for-profit business. That's why we exist, right? In part. Great question. Other questions that are, I think this is the reason why the Catholic Assembly for Business is so powerful. It puts questions in our heads, implicitly or explicitly. Every quarter, we come to these. Yes?
How about exactly what is the new evangelization?
The new evangelization, yeah. I'm going to tell Father Urach, he's got to go to all the other parishes. Right, Randy? We've been talking about,
We got a book for you.
we got a book, that's right, we got a book for you. Yeah, that would be a good challenge too. Go look it up and ask yourself, how do you live that in your workplace? How do you live that in the workplace? If you all could do me a favor here in just a moment and thank this group. Before we do that, I think what they did for us is open themselves up, right? Become a little vulnerable. And I especially noticed when Wendy was telling her story, and there's that moment in her story where she talked about how her mind wasn't on her faith. It was on, I can't remember what you said after that. And that gentleman helped you get your mind back on your faith. My hope is these four folks helped us get our minds on our faith this morning. Can you all help me thank them for that? It's all yours, Blake.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Not that I really need a microphone, but thank you all so much.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, she can say something.
Okay, so most speakers bring a book and you can buy it afterwards kind of thing. I'm not going to ask you to buy anything or donate to Catholic Charities, although you can go on our website at Catholic Charities. But we've laid at your place a brochure. We have a program called Corporate Responsibility or Cause Marketing, opportunities for you and your staff to support the mission of Catholic Charities by doing volunteer projects in our programs, doing donation drives. All of these folks have done that at their business, and Amy Tully, my Director of Development, very pregnant, but stand up there. We'll be around for a few more months. Please call her or call myself if you're interested in doing something with your company. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy, and thank you all so much. You know, we're so indebted to the four of you, and Ed, thank you so much. Let's give Ed a round of applause for all of you. It's a real gift to be able to facilitate like he does. And as a small token of our appreciation, what we're doing is a gift certificate for a free night stay and retreat here at the Spiritual Life Center. So for everybody that was involved today. So, and for those of you that don't know about the Spiritual Life Center, is this anybody's first time to be at the Spiritual Life Center? It's okay, we can be vulnerable. Okay, well, welcome if you have. It's obviously a hidden gem that a lot of people don't know about. But they do have either directed retreats or your own private retreat. If you have a chance and you haven't looked at the facilities, take time to do that and make it a place of oasis for yourself to try to use those spiritual muscles and improve those spiritual muscles. Come out here. There's the Stations of the Cross that's right here. That's unbelievable if you've never been out there. And they have a pond and walking trails. So I can't say enough of good things. But contact the Spiritual Life Center if you want to do that. And I do want to thank every time we have an event, we have a sponsor. And this quarter sponsor was Tom and the Donlier Corporation. So I'd like to give a... So the other things that you have on your table, grab a business card on your way out. It's also, there might be one in your book. So for those of you that haven't had a chance to read this, don't be intimidated when you see a pope in a publication. It's not something that you just like, oh, there's the newspaper or a heavy read. It's deep but not heavy. If you have a chance, I'm halfway through mine. It's wonderful. It really helps answer some of the questions about what is the new evangelization. And Pope Francis does a wonderful job kind of giving us a roadmap of how to live our lives. So, and there's also a survey. So if you signed up via email, you'll get an email with a link to a survey. Please, if you can, fill that out. It gives us valuable information on things we're doing well and areas to improve. Because this is not Blake's cab, it's not Ed's cab, it's not Jeff's cab, it's our cab, the Catholic Assembly for business for you all. We're blessed to have over 100 members in CAB that help us sustain and maintain this group. Only the Holy Spirit knows where we're going to go from here. So what we do know is our next speakers are going to be Matt and Mercy Schlapp. I don't know, has anybody heard of Matt Schlapp? Maybe once or twice. Anybody watch some of the national TV programs? He's been on there a time or two. Both of them spent time in the Bush administration. And obviously there'll be a lot of people who want to ask questions about that. What they have, is it 4 or 5 wonderful girls? There's 5. I was looking for my expert back there. Really going to talk about them living in the Beltway and how they try to integrate their faith life in what they do every day in a pretty amped up environment. So we're just so excited, and again, we're making an executive decision that any CAB member has unlimited guests. Okay, so it's not one, it's not two. Bring as many people as you want. Tell them about CAB. December 6th is the next event. We'd love to see everybody there. So you can get and invite unlimited guests. Make sure you fill this out and put your $100 if you're not a member already. It's a pretty simple process. Just no. If you have any questions about CAB membership, let me know. But we'd love to see us grow this so we can keep bringing the great events that we have. And as a gift to all of you, that is a book compliments of CAB. Also, there's some books around the corner too. Okay, check those out on your way out. We have some Matthew Kelly books and some different things. Take them. Those are from the last couple of years. If you want to give a Goodwill $5, $10 donation, that's fine. If not, just take them. Our goal is to help give you some nuggets to get you through the next 90 days, get you through the next year, and hopefully this morning has done that. And we thank you for coming. And I do want to add one before we break. I want to make sure that we keep the Clevenger family in our prayers. Most of you knew John, and he was actually supposed to be one of the panelists up here. And please keep Kristen and the family in your prayers. They need it, and the community needs it. And on behalf of them, I know the outpouring and everything has been wonderful. And as a member of CAB, he was instrumental, as he was in a lot of organizations. And I just want us to make sure we keep that family in our prayers. So, don't necessarily want to end on that note, but it is time to end. And we just look forward to seeing everybody back here on the 6th. And any suggestions, comments, questions, please let us know. And we're excited to see you back. So, thank you very much.